If you think the most dangerous gangs are the ones making headlines, you've never met the ones who don't. The Sons of Silence don't parade their crimes. They don't boast on camera. They don't shout their names into microphones. They don't need to. Because in the outlaw world, silence isn't a weakness. It's a strategy.
The Sons of Silence MC isn't about fame or recognition. They don't chase the headlines. They don't seek approval. They move like ghosts, silent, calculating, and deadly.
Whenever we went anywhere, people moved out of our way. They were scared.
Founded in a garage on beer and rebellion, the Sons of Silence became one of the most violent motorcycle clubs in America. And they did it without saying a word. No rap videos, no viral interviews. Just a string of bodies, busted doors, and federal raids that always seemed to come too late. They were underestimated from the beginning. And that's exactly how they like it. While other clubs chased fame, the Sons chased territory, meth labs, gun runs, power. From Colorado to Iowa to Indiana, they expanded in the shadows, one quiet war at a time. They fought the outlaws, battled the ATF, and buried anyone who got in the way.
For decades, this club has built a reputation not through words, but through actions. Federal agents, rival MCs, and even their own former members.
But the most chilling thing? They're still out there, stronger, smarter, quieter than ever. So if you think silence can't hurt you, you haven't been listening. Colorado Springs looked like the kind of place where nothing bad ever happens. Tree-lined streets, smiling cops, clean air, and military pride. A city built on discipline, order, and respect. But beneath the polished concrete and suburban cheer, something darker was rolling in. Quiet at first, but heavy like thunder before a downpour. The Sons of Silence didn't arrive with fanfare. They didn't need it. When they walked into a room, the energy changed. People moved out of their way instinctively, not out of politeness, out of fear.
There were too many times that I've seen people come up and get in brothers' faces and say, "You guys think you're tough, don't you?" Wrong thing to say. No wonder why they got beat up.
They didn't dress like rebels from the movies. Some wore leathers and long beards. Others looked like your neighbor, clean-shaven, buttoned up, and quiet. And that made them even more dangerous.
Some have long hair, some have beards, some have tattoos. Some look like just downright dirty, nasty bikers. But then you have the clean-cut people out there. Okay? The clean-cut ones are the ones you have to watch out for the most. Because they're hiding something.
The Sons were old school. A 1% club through and through, proud of the outlaw label. Violent when they had to be, and sometimes when they didn't. They lived by one rule. We don't talk, we act. And when they acted, bodies dropped, weapons vanished, and witnesses forgot how to speak.
Whenever somebody does not get out of our way, we will them up all the time.
Law enforcement called them the most violent motorcycle gang in the West. Locals had a different name, the Ghosts with Guns. No one ever saw them coming, but once they showed up, it was already too late. They didn't chase headlines or flaunt chaos like other gangs. They moved with precision.
A lot of brothers are pretty secretive about what they got going on. They could be involved.
Sometimes by myself. That way I know who's gonna snitch on me.
Parades weren't their style. Surgical strikes were. A member disrespected, expect retaliation before breakfast.
It looked like the guys were close, like there was a brotherhood, like they would do anything for each other.
A rival club crossed a line. That line would disappear along with whoever drew it. To outsiders, they looked like a dying breed. Relics from a grungy era fading into suburban America. But the truth was far more disturbing. They weren't dying. They were multiplying. Hey brothers, tired of YouTube YouTube's BS and censorship, it's time to break free. That's why I've shifted gears to Patreon, where I can bring you the raw, uncensored content you crave. Join my Patreon crew and get an insane package deal. Exclusive early access to all videos, days before YouTube, 100% ad-free viewing experience, uncensored, no-holds-barred community discussions, double the content, 2 killer videos every single week, VIP access, direct interaction with yours truly, inside scoop, exclusive biker world updates you won't find anywhere else. Ready to join the elite? Hit that Patreon link now. Your support doesn't just keep us rolling, it fuels a revolution of uncensored, unrestricted content. Join now and unlock a world of exclusive benefits. Longmont, Colorado, 1968. Nothing special about it, just another sleepy town trying to mind its own business. But every storm starts with stillness, and inside a dim garage, lit by the glow of cheap beer and bad decisions, 4 men cracked open a case of Budweiser and unknowingly opened the gates to something far bigger.
One day we're sitting around drinking a beer and said, said, what do you guys think if we start a little club? They were all for it. So that's where the Sons of Silence come from.
One of them was Bruce Richardson, Navy, vet reclusive, and nobody knew him well, and that was exactly how he liked it. But they all called him one thing: the Dude. They weren't planning to start a war, they just wanted to ride. To build something of their own, something the straight world couldn't touch.
I just wanted to be just a bunch of guys that could get together. Not everybody know our business. It's sort of like the mafia does something, right? They don't advertise it.
So, with nothing but a 6-pack and a sketchbook, they designed their patch. A bold red A, surrounded by wings, lifted straight off a Budweiser label. Why Budweiser? Why not? It was American, bold and loud without saying a word. Just like them. They named themselves the Sons of Silence. Not because they were quiet, but because silence meant secrecy.
In my book, it could have been God that started the Sons of Silence, because the Sons of Silence are the best club out there.
Silence meant strength. And silence. It could kill a man faster than a bullet if you knew how to use it. In the early days, they were hardly criminals.
The criminal activity of the Sons of Silence in the 1960s probably amounted to some fighting, some beer drinking, and pot smoking.
What young man ain't rowdy? Been there, I know that.
And for a while, that was enough. But something started to change. As the sun spread through Colorado, then Iowa, Kansas, and beyond, the men who joined weren't just looking for freedom.
We're bikers. We're the outlaws. We're the best of the best. Because we make our own laws, our own rules, and we go by that.
They're kind of social misfits. These people want that intimidation. You can put that patch on their back and walk around the streets and intimidate the public.
And once that kind of hunger takes hold, what do you think happens?
Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, Indianapolis, Illinois, anywhere. Where our territory is us. Us only. We will try to take over. That's what we do.
It wasn't long before they caught the eye of law enforcement. In 1971, the Colorado Springs chapter landed in the crosshairs.
There was a group of Sons of Silence members who had been indicted in Colorado Springs on conspiracy charges to kidnap and murder the wives and daughter of a police detective.
The charges didn't stick. Witnesses vanished, stories changed, and the Sons, they kept riding like nothing happened.
Types of crimes that the Sons of Silence are involved in over the years has ranged from murder, burglaries, robberies, drug dealing, gun dealing, prostitution, you name it. They've been involved in it.
What kind of club survives an indictment like that without flinching? By 1974, the Dude had seen enough. The club was evolving into something darker, something he didn't recognize.
Everywhere I would go, I was being followed. Law enforcement.
So he handed over leadership and disappeared into the wind. leaving behind a legacy that was just getting started. The Sons weren't just riding anymore. They were rising. And as the chapters grew, so did the rules, so did the consequences, so did the violence.
Any disrespect, you jump, you take care of business. Somebody with your brother never hits the ground, you take him out.
In the world of the Sons of Silence, loyalty isn't a word, it's a weapon. Earning the patch means crawling through fire with your eyes open and your mouth shut. It means proving you're not just tough, but unbreakable. Because once you're in, you're either a brother or you're a ghost. There are no shortcuts, no second chances, and no easy days.
I love my mother. I would do anything to keep my patch on my back. I would damn near kill my mom to keep it.
Before a man earns his patch, he becomes a prospect, the club's punching bag, errand boy, and test subject. Every command is law. Every insult must be swallowed. And every mistake is punished.
As a prospect, you're required to do whatever a patch-wearing member tells you to do.
They don't just haze you, they break you. Then they rebuild you in the image of the club. The brutality isn't random, it's ritual. Prospects are ordered to pick fights, take hits, clean up blood, and sometimes spill it.
The Sons of Silence are kind of a throwback in the outlaw motorcycle gang world. They like to punch the prospects in the mouth, headbutt them, kick them, do those kind of things, and just run them hard.
You're taught to eat dirt and smile, to take pain like a sermon and carry it like armor.
If they holler for a prospect, you better get there quick. You don't kind of stumble over there, you run.
Whatever you're told to do, you have to do. If it's pick up a dog turd off the floor and eat the you gotta do it.
One former member put it this way: if you won't bleed for the patch, you don't deserve to wear it. But once you've earned it, really earned it, everything changes. You get the patch, the colors, the right to walk into any chapter and be known by name. You're not a nobody anymore, you're a son. And being a son means you carry the law on your back, your law.
If you screw up, it used to say in their old bylaws, it was a beating. That's the punishment. You took a beating.
It ain't no little girls club, man. This is man's club. You're gonna take the man punishment. You don't wanna take that? Take your little squat ass out to do it.
The structure is military. Every chapter has a president, vice president, sergeant at arms, treasurer. And above them, national officers who see everything, even from thousands of miles away. Then there are the Nomads, the club's shadow unit. No territory, no mercy. If local enforcers can't handle it, the Nomads show up. And when they do, someone bleeds.
We have a Nomad chapter. If things cannot be done by the enforcers or the chapters of their state, town, or whatever, the Nomads will come in.
They're not peacekeepers, they're executioners with patches.
It's a death squad. They will take anybody out. No hesitation, no heartbeat, no blink of an eye. They would just literally you up and kill you.
Weapons are sacred. The Sons carry steel with elegance. AKs, pistols, kill lights, modified flashlights designed to crush skulls in the dark. A padlock and a bandana swinging from the back pocket becomes a hammer in the hands of someone trained to kill.
It doesn't look like anything, but on the other end of it, there's a padlock on there. You can pull that out, man, it's just like a sap, blackjack. You can hit people with it and knock them right the hell out.
And then there's the ink. Patches aren't the only way to mark loyalty. Tattoos are earned, not chosen. You get one after 10 years, but leave the club in bad standing, and they'll carve it off.
Hope to God we don't find you, because we will cut off you. We will cut the whole thing right off your arm. With a knife, with a razor blade, whatever. We will take it off.
Club property is club property, even when it's under your skin. So ask yourself, how far would you go for family? Because in the Sons of Silence, you don't just join a club. You bury your old life and swear silence over the grave. By the 1980s, the Sons of Silence had stopped pretending. They weren't just a brotherhood anymore. They were a machine. Chapters were forming across the Midwest like oil spills: Iowa, Minnesota, Indiana, Illinois. And wherever they went, two things followed: meth and mayhem.
The main drug of choice in the club is speed. There were times when I was awake for 3 or 4 days at a shot.
We sell a lot of cocaine, but our drug that we sell most of is crystal meth, because that is our money.
But power doesn't grow in a vacuum. And when the Sons expanded into Indiana, they ran head-on into another predator, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. The Outlaws saw them as new blood, loud, hungry, reckless. And the Sons? They saw the Outlaws as old kings sitting on a crumbling throne. Peace was never going to last. In March 1980, the Outlaws invited the Sons to a party in Indiana. Maybe it was a test. Maybe it was bait. Either way, it didn't go well. The Outlaws told the Sons to take off their guns before coming inside. For men who lived by their patches and died by their pride, that was never going to happen.
The Outlaws told them to take their guns off. The Sons of Silence felt disrespected. They weren't allowed to bring their guns into the Outlaws clubhouse, and they refused and left.
The word that came down was short and sharp: air condition the house.
Some calls were made back to Colorado. The word I got was they were told to air condition the house.
That night, 5 Sons returned to the Outlaws clubhouse. They didn't knock. They opened fire. Thomas Satan Reeves, the Outlaws' national vice president, was shot in the head and died on the floor.
Yeah, he stuck his head above the 2 stories. Upstairs, 2 stories. He stuck his head above the window sill. Top clean off.
It was sudden. No one was ever charged. But inside outlaw circles, everyone knew who pulled the trigger, and they knew what would come next. The war was on.
It's better for you people to stay the away. If you do not go away, we will break your legs and your arms, or we'll kill you.
Over the next decade, retaliation came in waves. Drive-bys, stabbings, women killed for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. In 1980, 2 sons were gunned down while riding with their girlfriends. One of those women never made it home. What kind of war spills blood from those who didn't even sign up? By 1990, the violence hit Sturgis, the world's biggest biker rally. That year, the Outlaws showed up in force, something they rarely did. The Sons saw it as a message.
We knew the Outlaws were there. Everybody was in orders to travel in groups to avoid any kind of conflicts. We were ready to fight if we had to, but we weren't going looking for it.
Inside Gunner's Bar, the Sons and Outlaws clashed again.
The Outlaws were in a bar on Main Street in Sturgis called Gunner's, getting along, drinking. 2 Sons of Silence members start to go in, and an outlaw confronts them at the door, says, "Can't come in here." And they basically said, "Yeah, we're coming in."
They're just 2 of the people that like to go out and start.
Shots fired, knives drawn. 2 sons ran through the streets bleeding, chased by sirens. The festival kept playing music, but everyone felt the shift. The war wasn't random anymore. It was personal, controlled, calculated. J.R. Reed had been national president for nearly a decade by then. He wasn't like the others. He believed in strategy over slaughter. And he saw something the younger members didn't. You can't fight every enemy and survive the war. Who wins when everyone loses?
I mean, the feds would love it. Like I say, whoever doesn't die, they get to arrest.
So J.R. did what few men in his position would do. He tried to end it.
JR wasn't looked at as a violent man. He was more of a calming effect, if anything. He tried to solve problems with other clubs with diplomacy as much as he could.
But peace doesn't come easy when blood has already soaked the pavement. By the end of the 1990s, the Sons of Silence were riding high, feared, fortified, and firmly entrenched across the American West. Their loyalty ran deep, their discipline was ruthless, and their ranks were filled with men who would rather die than snitch. But what none of them saw coming was the enemy already inside the clubhouse, wearing their patch, drinking their whiskey, and recording their every move. He called himself Bo, and to anyone watching from across the bar, he looked the part. Greasy hair, rough edges. The 1,000-yard stare that could pass for either trauma or testosterone. But Bo was no biker. His real name was Blake Boatler, and he was a federal agent with the ATF, assigned to bring down the most violent outlaw motorcycle gang in Colorado, not from the outside, but from the inside out.
The one group that stood out as being the criminal element in Colorado Springs was the Sons of Silence Motorcycle Club. They had a reputation for violence, and many of the potential informants I spoke to referred to them as the Sons of Violence instead of the Sons of Silence.
He didn't walk in with a badge. He walked in with a story. Said he was rebelling against a wealthy family. He liked bikes, liked chaos, liked danger.
So you go in what we would call a cold call situation. You don't have an informant or anyone else vouching for you that you're a good guy as far as the criminal world goes. So you have to go in there and earn your own stripes.
And apparently, that was enough to get him a drink, a nod, and eventually an invitation to a son's party at the Colorado Springs clubhouse. But trust inside a 1% club doesn't come easy, and Blake nearly burned his entire cover before it even got started. During that first party, he spotted a hangaround with a pistol behind the bar. Trying to make conversation, he casually asked if the guy ever wanted to sell it.
This first party was going very well up until the time that I observed a hangaround retrieve a gun from behind the bar. And I told that hangaround, I said, "That's a nice gun. Let me know if you ever want to sell it."
To a civilian, that might have seemed harmless. To the Sons of Silence, it sounded like a setup. Minutes later, 2 patched members pulled him outside, not for a smoke, but for a test. Who was he? What was he about? And more importantly, who had vouched for him? Blake didn't flinch, but he knew at that moment, if he ran, he was finished. If he stayed, he had to convince them he was just another drunk looking for Brotherhood. So he walked back inside.
I saw an opportunity to go back into the bar and maybe mend some fences. And that's the route I chose to do.
And that's when the enforcer noticed him again. Frank Pearson, a man who could smell fear the way sharks smell blood.
A few minutes later, Frank Pearson, who was an enforcer for the club, came back into the bar, and he saw me sitting there, and he came walking up to me, and he said, "What are you doing here?"
Blake didn't blink. He smiled, shrugged, and said,
And I said, "Well, got out of his side. Can I buy you a drink?" And Frank looked at me for a couple of seconds, and then he said, "Yeah, buy me a drink." So in a way, Frank admired the fact that I stayed around.
That night, Blake didn't just dodge suspicion. He earned his first real ounce of respect. And over the next 2 years, he earned much more. He brought in his girlfriend, another ATF agent, who posed as his property.
I had an old lady that wore a property of buckle for me, who happened to be a special agent with ATF.
Just to help me out in that role, my story was more like I was rebelling from a wealthy family and was attracted to that type of culture.
He also introduced a third operative, Cole, who played the role of outlaw partner. Together, they didn't just hang around the Sons. They became them. They wore the patch. They followed the rules. And they kept the cameras rolling while guns, meth, grenades, and cash moved across living rooms like poker chips.
I was able to buy firearms, explosives, narcotics from other members within the Colorado Springs chapters and other chapters.
You touching this? Try after this.
It's gonna smoke?
Yeah. Well, okay. On a half pound, probably get down to 6 grand easy.
That's where I'm gonna make my money, you know.
But going deep meant going dark. Blake stopped seeing his kids, stopped being himself. His beard grew long, his stare grew empty. And the man who once swore to protect people started wondering who he really was protecting. He couldn't eat in public, couldn't go to church, couldn't show a moment of doubt, not even when the walls started closing in. And they did close in. During one arms deal, National President J.R. Reed pulled him aside, looked him dead in the eye, and asked, "What agency are you with?"
JR approached me and asked me, "What government agency do you work for with all these guns you've been buying?" And I looked him square in the eye and said, "I work for the Gun Reclamation Board," and laughed. And he looked at me for just a few seconds, and then he too laughed. And I knew then that he'd bought that.
By October 1999, the operation was ready to close. Blake and Cole had the evidence. They had names. They had the trust of a gang that didn't trust anyone. And now, they had a decision to make. On the morning of October 7th, Blake walked into the clubhouse one final time. Only this time, he wasn't there to blend in. He was there to bring it all down.
I was to take the club shotgun out from behind the bar. I was to disconnect the surveillance cameras, electronic beams that were set up.
And for the first time in 2 years, he took off his Sons of Silence patch and put on his ATF badge. That night, 43 members and associates were arrested. Nearly 60 weapons were seized, along with grenades, bombs, meth, and tens of thousands in cash.
I think it opened up people's eyes that, geez, these guys are selling bombs and machine guns and selling all these drugs.
The Colorado Springs and Commerce City clubhouses were raided. The ATF called it a complete takedown. But the Sons, they didn't say a word. They just watched, waited. And when the headlines faded, they kept writing. Because when a brother turns out to be a Fed, the wound never heals, it festers. And in the world of outlaw clubs, trust isn't just broken, it's shattered. The ATF thought they'd killed it. After the 1999 raids, the arrests, the seizures, and the press conferences, federal agents stood behind podiums and declared it over. The Sons of Silence had been dismantled, their chapters cracked, their network shattered. On paper, it looked like a clean kill. But real power doesn't live on paper.
Us, we're bikers. We're the best of the best. They didn't take us down, we're still here.
Just 4 years later, the man who'd led the club for 22 years, J.R. Reed, died of heart failure. They said it was peaceful, quiet, fitting maybe for a man who spent decades leading a brotherhood built on silence. But when his funeral came, it was anything but peaceful. They came from every corner of the country. Dozens of chapters, hundreds of bikes, leather jackets. The Sons of Silence Nation showed up in full force, not just to bury a man, but to make a statement. We're still here. JR had done something no one expected. He'd ended the war, not with law enforcement, but with the Outlaws MC. He brokered peace when everyone else wanted bodies, and somehow that peace held. And while the cops were chasing ghosts, the Sons were rebuilding. They opened new chapters and moved into new states.
The Sons of Silence opened up additional chapters in additional states the years following the takedown on this investigation. So at this time, I would estimate that the Sons of Silence are probably larger now than they were back in 1999.
Like I said, we are not going to go anywhere.
Some members went underground, others just got quieter. Nick Nichols, a 10-year son, turned in his patch and found God. He joined a Christian motorcycle club and said he just wanted peace.
I wanted a break. I wanted some time off. I wanted just to be with my wife. And I asked the club for an early retirement.
But what kind of man walks away from a war without carrying the weight of it forever? Waddles retired. The police intel files? Mostly destroyed. No one replaced him. No one was watching anymore.
I was working bikers 90% of the time. Nobody's taken that over since then. Most of the old Denver Police intelligence files were destroyed after I left.
You know, my opinion is, being the Sons of Silence that I am, and Waddles being gone, it's not like having a proctologist up your ass anymore.
And that's when the Sons got stronger. Because the loudest clubs draw the most heat. But the quiet ones, they expand in the dark. They recruit at swap meets, fundraise through merchandise, and pass down stories like scripture. No one's chasing them now. No one's pulling surveillance vans into the alley behind their clubhouse. And no one's asking what happens when men like that have total freedom. They're not gone. They're not finished. They're not dead. They're just riding in silence now.